Attention. Due to the nature of the films discussed, the Civil Gore podcast may contain adult language and themes.
It was I.
Liar.
'Twas I what stolen. I be the witch of the wood.
Liar. Liar.
I am.
Listen not to her, Mercy.
I am that very witch. When I sleep, my spirit slips away from my body and dances naked with the devil.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of the Civil Gore podcast.
Yes, and we ran out of Friday the 13th, so I have no pun for that at all.
No, we'll have to start using Fast and the Furious
yeah, they're catching up really quickly. Yeah, once they go to space, I guess they've officially caught up.
So, Brian, what's your beverage of choice this evening?
Well, and I'm Timison, and and I'm calling him that when you realize the movie we're doing today will fit perfectly. My beverage of choice is Close Encounter, which is by Pipeworks, which is one of my favorite breweries. They make a Ninjaverse Unicorn, Little Citra, and this one is a black IPA, which goes well with our movie of choice tonight, as we'll get into. What do you got there, Timothy?
I have got it's a very light beer called Zambruni. And it is out of a little brewery in Apex, North Carolina called Brewprint. Brewprint.
I like that, a little pun there.
Yeah, and so the Zambruni's got a Zamboni on the front of it. But I really like this one. I picked it up at Whole Foods, and it's and the guy was there giving out samples of it. And very, very nice, light, crisp summer beer.
See, and see, once you said Zambruni, being a big hockey fan, I should have got that reference, but I immediately went to The Rock. I could picture him going like, "The Rock says, know your role, Zambruni." So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Also, we'll crack that one right.
Nice.
There we go.
That may have to be part of our beer exchange.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice little, it's nothing fancy, but I like it because it's one of those you could kind of drink like Sprite.
Oh,
it's not very heavy.
Those are deadly.
Okay, so let's get right into our first chop because I've been, we're having to make our own sound effects. I can't find a good sound effect.
Yeah, we're going to work on that.
We'll work on it. We had one the first couple episodes, and I wanted something a little fancier, and I just haven't been able to find it yet. But
yeah, it wasn't as powerful as we wanted. It was more like a first chip,
exactly.
First slice. We want a big first chop.
Yeah, we want you to feel it. In
your
headphones.
Yeah, and that binaural sound if you lucky enough to have those headphones.
Yeah. Well, I have been killing the backlog project again this week, but I also, as a favor to my loyal listeners who are tired of me talking about the backlog project, I also watched another interesting title on Shudder, which I'll get to in a second. But first, the backlog project. I watched PHANTASM.
Nice.
From 1979, which I had not seen in a long time. I'll admit, the first time I saw this movie, I really didn't get it at all. But upon a rewatch, being older and kind of watching it again, I realized the strength of this movie lies in the characters and the bond between the two brothers and stuff. And I really picked up on that this time around. I really, really liked it.
Now, did you watch the version in your box set or that version that we bought separately?
I watched the box set version. I've still got the other one sealed.
Is it the same? Did you ever figure out, or is it?
I believe it's the same.
Same? Okay.
If it's not, then please don't shout at the podcast.
Yeah.
But I have my cursory examination was that they're the same one. And then the other one I watched, this was a great, the roulette wheel was kind to me this week. I also watched Carrie.
Oh,
which
what
is
a classic.
one of my all-time favorite horror movies. And I've seen Carrie, a dozen times, if not more. But, if it comes up in the spin, I have to watch it again, regardless.
Yeah, that's one of the movies I double dipped on myself. Two versions of it, just because I loved the second version. It had a couple little extras on it that I bought.
Yeah.
So.
But I was just taken aback about how good Sissy Spacek's role is in this movie. Like, even though I've seen this movie a dozen times, I just couldn't get past how brilliant she is in this film.
Right.
Like, I just can't imagine anybody else in that role. Ever.
And look what it did. It advanced her to the recently discussed classic Ring 2.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, that was terrible. Yeah, you're saying how great she was, and I just probably took her one black eye in her career was that movie. Although she was fantastic in it.
Yeah, and I want to put this in the rundown. I was going to relate this story. My brother, when he was very little, and I'm talking very, very little, maybe 5, 6, he was an extra along with my mom in a movie called Marie with Sissy Spacek, it's a great movie. It's a drama about a mom. I can't remember all that's happened because it's been years since I've seen it. I don't even know if it's available on DVD or not. But he was just a background extra, a blurry extra at that walks past in a hospital scene. And he was there all day shooting this scene. But he walks right behind her, and he actually got to meet her. My mom got to meet her and said she was just super, super nice woman.
Oh, wow. That's
kind
cool.
to everybody on the set. Took time out to talk to all the extras and stuff. So yeah, she's a class act.
She seems like she'd be really cool.
So yeah, that one was not. It's never a chore to watch Carrie because I absolutely love that movie. And in fact, Father of the Year award, my son who's 5, he set in for the last 20 minutes. So.
Oh, well, yeah, I was gonna say maybe he would. I was gonna say like with the adult themes of that film, not watching the whole thing could help it. But I mean, think about it. In the last 20 minutes, what happens? It's like you don't need to know what's going on to be terrified of that.
Oh yeah, he
scene.
thought it was cool. He loved it. He thought it was really cool.
Let's just hope he forgets about it by the time his prom rolls around. And he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Do
and
a prank.
Then I knocked out. Oh, also one more, which I'm almost finished with, so I'll just throw it in. It was Killer Clowns from Outer Space, 1988, which is a classic.
I gotta buy that. I keep seeing it at Best Buy for $10, and every time I say I'll get it, and I don't.
I have it on DVD, and I double dipped on it just because the Blu-ray was so cheap. I decided to upgrade, but yeah, that's a fun one, kind of crazy and cheesy, but and then I knocked out 2 commentaries. The first was that terrible Night of the Demons 2009 commentary.
Right. And
the commentary couldn't redeem this movie. It was basically a bunch of the cast sitting around.
Apologizing?
No. I mean, they were just talking about, the fun times they had on the movie, but it's like, I don't like any of the cast, so I really don't like sitting here listening to you talk for an hour and a half, which is what they did. But, I'm a loyal trooper. I had to get through it. And then I also listened to the commentary for The Possession, which was that movie I talked about last week that I really did enjoy.
Oh, right. Yeah.
The director on this one is such a weirdo. He talks through the whole I'm going to do an impression of his commentary. Here we go. He's, now the camera lifts and the music kicks in. She is thinking, what do I do? Where do I go? Silence. And I was like, is this dude trying to hypnotize me?
Why that sounds like one of those like weird like student films that someone that's always in those student film festivals. There's always one that's like that.
Yeah, he sounded like he was in awe of his own work. Or either he was, or one of those like new age, like he was trying to. It sounded like a stress relaxation tape or something.
Oh, okay. He took it literally then, a commentary. I guess he assumed that like maybe this is what I'm supposed to describe in case someone can't hear or see what's going on.
I mean, the problem is he sprinkled in just enough stuff that was interesting to hold my interest, but the whole time I was like just mesmerized by his dulcet tones.
Oh wow!
So he's not the only one that has dulcet tones.
Oh my god! We'll have to have a dulcet tone competition. so we should get in touch with him in case like for some reason you can't make a podcast. We won't lose a beat.
Oh man, no, he'd replace me in a heartbeat.
Well, just for one, your dulcet tones also have good humor to it, and this guy seems like he's boring, so we don't. Yeah.
But the last one I saved for last because it was so crazy. So again, Shudder, which we do not get paid by.
Nope. But I noticed they are giving out. I saw an ad. I think it was through Facebook. They give out for new, I guess subscribers to the service. They were giving out Google Chromes or something, or what's Google TV? What's the one?
Wow.
Google, what's the thing? The stick that they put in for Google?
Oh,
Is it?
Oh my god! I almost said Google Fire. That's the
I want to say Google Fire Stick, but I know whatever the equivalent of that is. I saw them giving that out.
Yeah, the
Chromecast. Yeah. So hey, you know what? With the amount of time we mention them, they could at least throw one of us a Google Chromecast, you know,
I
to help
agree.
us, help us watch films that they can't put on there right now. So, are you listening, Shudder? We're not asking for much. You're giving them away anyway.
Yeah, they're like $20. Come on.
Yeah.
But this one was called GHOSTWATCH. It's from 1992, and I don't know how I guess I ran across it because I saw some of their new releases, but apparently this aired on BBC in 1992 for one night. I believe it was Halloween or close to Halloween. And many people thought this was a real documentary.
Oh, like a War of the Worlds thing.
Yeah, and I mean, it caused like a big stir. And, I was reading comments from people who had watched this as kids and thought it was totally real. But the story of it's pretty creepy. So it starts off with, like, you have this guy in the studio that's very believable that acts like they are investigating this haunted house. And they're going to do it live on air. And in this particular house, there is a poltergeist that's named Pipes. And they call him Pipes because when they first started hearing the knocking and stuff, the mom said, "Oh, it's just the pipes."
Ah.
So the girl,
cool.
so the girl calls him Pipes. And so, obviously it shows the film crew arriving at the house, and they interview the mom and they interview the kids, and there's like some footage of the kids like getting woken up by these bangs and stuff. And watching it now, knowing that it was not real, you can't unknow that, obviously.
Right, yeah.
So when you're going in, you kind of look at this with a skeptical eye anyway. And, because it's from the early 90s, it looks kind of dated nowadays, with the big monitors and the VHS and all that stuff. But it's still really fascinating show. And even though you can tell it's fake now, knowing the background and knowing the history, I was still very entertained by it. And I recommend checking it out just because it was not available for a long time. Like, basically, you have to think this thing had come out for one night. People had seen it, had been scared to death by it, and then no way to get it on VHS, no way to get it on DVD, nothing.
And at some level, that probably added to the, the hype of it, because since you couldn't get it, like, maybe it was real,
Yeah, and I'm sure people's memories made it scarier than it actually probably is.
Right.
But yeah, it's still pretty creepy, and I really enjoyed it. So check that one out, GHOSTWATCH.
Yeah, a friend of mine had told me about that. Actually, he I guess he saw an article that Shudder was going to have it, and yeah, no, I actually been meaning to watch it. It was because I love that kind of stuff. And see, that's the funny thing, it brings up a point, right? I mean, this was well before, I guess, right? Well, maybe not well before, but it was. Oh no, I guess it was pretty well before then Blair Witch came out, right? When did that come out? The original.
Oh yeah, Blair Witch was not until
like it was years later, right?
Yeah, years later.
Yeah, so at that time, found footage movies were not a real thing. They had fake documentaries you could get, but there was no true like found footage. So at some level, this is kind of not. I guess it wasn't true found footage, but but that to me, that's always the thing that found footage. The one drawback to it is okay, you're obviously walking in and you're paying a ticket. You know that it's not a real thing. I love if they would just start kind of doing stuff like this now. Like all of a sudden just completely make this whole thing up and kind of just start sneaking it in.
Yeah, now, I will say there is some kind of example of this, like on the Sci-Fi Channel that has done like those mermaid fact or fiction documentaries, and I was trying to think, there was another one time. The mermaid one is the one I think about because they presented it as a real documentary that these people had found mermaids, and it was really cool. I mean, obviously I knew it was fake, but
see, I mean, I would love if they did like this. I mean, actually, probably nowadays with the way people are, it may be way too close, I guess, to home to try to make. Imagine like just doing like an all out just multimedia assault on this stuff, like literally have like just have random people secretly in on it that you would never expect to be in on it, like your mailman or something, coming out.
I wondered if today's age it would work because of the spread, or if it would be, or if people are just too skeptical now.
Well, right, because now with the internet, it's like everything is a hoax. First, what's the thing everyone goes to as soon as they see something like that? They go right on Snopes.com to see if it's proven.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love for it to. I mean, it's sad, as we advance through stuff like this, you kind of lose that innocence and chances to kind of do scares like that, but
Yeah, be an interesting social experiment.
It would be. Maybe that's what we'll have to do with it. That'll be our Kickstarter number 8.
Yeah. So what'd you get into this week, Brian?
Well, I've been pretty much just trying to blow through my Twin Peaks, I guess my backlog project, because I'm trying to make sure I'm finished. I'm almost there. I have about 12 episodes left, and I've been trying to get through like 3 a day, because I want to be done with the whole series and Fire Walk with Me and some of the extras by Sunday night. And it's funny because, when you were mentioning Carrie, I was thinking of Piper Laurie, and of course she was in Twin Peaks. So she played Catherine Martell in Twin Peaks, and so that was like, oh, okay, that's very timely that Tim watched Carrie. But yeah, so what I want to do is, another reason why I really want to finish it, because of course, nowadays with cable, anything can be watched, on delay or on demand or something. But I want to watch this live because I was thinking it would be a great experiment. Like, I'm already planning to, have a nice cup of black coffee, just like Agent Cooper, get a nice slice of cherry pie, a donut, and, kind of live tweet maybe through, through our Twitter page, obviously, and through start live tweeting through the premiere of the episode. I think that might be kind of a fun thing. It's such an iconic event. 25 years later, this show comes back, and it's got such hype to it, and literally no one knows much about it at all, other than which cast is returning, and there's a whole bunch of new big name people in this that you wonder where it fits in. And I don't know. I can't wait. I mean, I don't know. You said you never really got into too much Twin Peaks, right?
No, I've never watched it, and I had planned to, like I mentioned several episodes back, I had planned to try to catch up before this thing, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's tough, and it's funny. I'm in through about midway through the second season when it really starts to get, they start going really super creepy with stuff, and you really start to find out, without spoiling it. I won't spoil it for you, but really starts to kind of go to the way it, I think what people really remember about the show is coming up. So, I'm looking forward to it, because I've seen the first season tons of times, because I remember I had, at one point, the video tapes they only had the first season released, and it took forever for the second season to come out finally and release, and I think they finally released it in a box set of all of them. So at the time, I must have rewatched the first season multiple times, so I remember that really well. So it's kind of fun, because I hadn't seen the second season in years and years, so it's kind of fun to watch it now again, and just I'm vaguely starting to remember these parts and stuff. So I was like, oh, this is really cool. I forgot about that. So yeah, so I'm super psyched about that. So my plan is to live tweet the different things that are going on in this. So if you guys are Twin Peaks fans, kind of check it out. I know I made our Twitter page follow a ton of Twin Peaks stuff, so it totally getting me psyched, because I keep seeing little things about it. So
cool.
So it should be cool.
All right, so let's go into dismemberment, which we don't have a sound effect for that. We'll have to come up.
No, maybe like a spinning disc that goes into a saw blade and then slices through someone's neck.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, there we go. Good.
Blu-ray releases for May 23rd, a big one this week.
Oh, I can't wait.
Which is Get Out.
Yes, one of our big favorites of the year.
And one that we'll probably do an episode on at some point.
Yeah, we have to, because that was definitely one of my favorite horror movies I've seen in a while. It was, and it's so, it was so incredible to, especially coming from a comedic guy, by trade, it's to do such a great horror film that had, it had some great humor in it too, but it had some creepy scenes.
Yeah, and I rarely buy Blu-rays on release week due to the expense, but this is one I'll make an exception for.
Yeah, you got to get that.
And then we have another big one, which I didn't catch. I think you did, Brian.
Yes.
Which was XX, which is the anthology by all female directors.
Yeah, you will love that. Being an anthology fan like I will, you definitely gotta make sure you watch that. When I have a feeling that'll be what did I see? Yeah, I had seen it a while ago, but yeah, I think I'm sure it'll be something that'll be on Shudder soon enough.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Then we have Wolf Guy from 1975. This is a Japanese werewolf cop movie.
Wolf Guy. It's you're so used to the Wolf Man.
I put on the rundown, must see? Question mark, because that sounds awesome.
It does.
Then this one I couldn't find any information about until I realized it was released under a different name, but it's called Hack-O-Lantern from 1988, but it's more commonly known as Halloween Night. And the synopsis is a kindly old grandfather is actually the leader of a satanic cult.
I knew it.
Yeah.
Those kindly old grandfathers.
It's always the grandfather.
It is. None of them are really kind.
Our good buddy Bill Paxton, The Vagrant from 1992. Bill Paxton, Michael Ironside. Paxton is terrorized by a vagrant living across from his new home.
Yeah, and we were actually toying with that as for a Bill Paxton tribute at one point, but I'm glad we went with Aunt Cheryl and Night Warning.
Yeah, I think it was
because that one I love that movie, and now you remember how we talked about when we go to the shows the regret where we didn't purchase something. I should have bought their whatever bootleggy version they had on DVD of that movie, because when am I ever going to see that again?
Yeah, exactly. Yep, you should have. Then we have The Void. I've heard mixed reviews on this one. This was from 2016. Shortly after delivering a patient to an understaffed hospital, a police officer experiences strange and violent occurrences seemingly linked to a group of mysterious hooded figures. That's taken directly from the IMDb page. But I've heard good and bad. I'm on the Shockwaves podcast, which is a great horror podcast.
Yes,
not to plug our competition, but they're
we can all exist.
They're industry people, so I mean they're way beyond what we're doing here. But they have a horror Facebook group or a shocker Facebook group or whatever. So people will post different reviews of movies and stuff they've seen. I've seen really divided reviews of this one, so I kind of want to check it out just to see for myself.
Now, does it take place in Brooklyn by chance? Because all those hooded figures are probably just the hipsters. So
Maybe. And then finally we have Voodoo Black Exorcist from 1974. These are the kind of movies they were releasing in the year I was born.
When I looked at this in the rundown, I thought you may have mixed the wrong description with the title.
Right.
But
I didn't.
Yeah, you didn't?
I don't think so.
Why is this the description of this with this title?
Well, the description Brian's referring to is Mummy terrorizes ocean liner.
What?
I don't know. I didn't name the movie.
But I'll tell you, though, this makes me want to see it. What does a mummy do on an ocean liner? I can't imagine that. It's like, is it like hanging out with like Isaac at the bar? Is it hanging up with Captain Stubing? I don't know what's going on there.
I don't know, but it sounds awesome, doesn't it?
It does. So, that one. Just because I can't imagine how it got on there, Although I'm sure it's gonna be some kind of. I can already predict this. Actually, let's see how right I am. I'm gonna make a guess on what this movie, how this plot goes, and when we actually get to see this, we'll see how close I am. These bumbling, probably is one guy who's got this mustache, and he's this real trying to be a sinister looking criminal, is sneaking aboard this mummy that he stole, and he's gonna have a bumbling assistant who is gonna forget to do something, and this mummy is gonna be down in the cargo hold, and somehow someone knocks into it, and it comes up and escapes, and next thing you know, it's on the Lido deck, hanging out with bikini clad women with a cocktail, and they're gonna think he's or better yet, they may add that it's a special Halloween cruise, so he'll blend in for a while. Something along that line.
One extended disco dance scene where people are just dancing randomly.
Right. There's gonna be something like that, yeah. But watch.
I kind of love movies that have nothing to do with the title, and you can tell they're like, what are we gonna call this picture? I don't know. Voodoo Black Exorcist?
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, that's one of those titles that they had lying around that never got greenlit, but yet they still have the rights to the title, and it's expiring. And they're like, well, this is the closest we have, so let's go. Now we gotta watch this. We gotta see how close I am. That just gave me an idea. I think we should, as we get down, right now, we're still, as we know, we're playing with the format a little. Maybe this should be kind of something we do every once in a while, where we'll take one of these obscure kind of titles like this, and we'll just guess. We'll each throw a guess, and we'll see whoever gets closest.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
How
We
fun
need
would
to
that
do
be, right?
That would be really fun. We're going to do that. That'll be a
Okay.
special episode.
Yeah, where we just totally guess, and no prize, just gentleman's bet, just for fun, just to
And if
see
any-
who can do
Yeah,
it.
if anybody has a suggestion for that, send it to our email or tweet us
Yeah,
and at Civil Gore Pod and just say, this is the title, and I promise I will not look it up.
yeah, we will
I
not
will-
look it up.
I won't look at anything. You just tell me where to watch it or how to get to it, and we'll do that.
Yeah, and we'll try and we'll make our assumptions first, and then a week later we'll report to see how close we were on our guesses.
Now, the theatrical releases, there's one big elephant in the
Oh.
room. First, I'll go to the little one, which is Devil's Domain, starring Michael Madsen. Always a sign of quality.
Yes,
A girl makes a deal with the devil to exact revenge on her cyberbullies.
that's what it got modern. Yeah,
I kind of like that. I like seeing horror movies that try to keep up with the times.
yeah. Well, now, and the funny thing is, this plot actually is not. Even though it's kind of up, in terms of modern times, it's still very similar to kind of. I don't know if you ever saw that film with Clint Howard back in the day, Evil Speak, which used to freak me out. Where he had that old little Apple computer, remember, and he somehow contacted Satan through it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, obviously the plot is nothing original, but I'd like to see how they do it anyway. With now that because he wasn't being cyberbullied, he was being bullied. So I'm wondering how this, that modernization part of it is the cyberbullies. So this should be interesting.
So, of course, the big release this week is Alien Covenant, which I'm hoping to catch this weekend. This episode is dropping on Friday, so it's dropping today, actually. And now I have heard mostly good reviews, but I've heard that it's maybe won't satisfy the people that did not like Prometheus because it has a lot of that same tone to it.
Oh, really? It looked like it had a lot more action than Prometheus,
Yeah,
just from the
I think-
trailers.
From what I've seen, or just the word on the street kind of thing, it's been like if you did not like Prometheus, there's going to be things about this movie that you don't really like. But by the same token, if you did like Prometheus, you're kind of getting that plus more.
See, I like Prometheus. I didn't have a problem with it. I know a lot of people did. I thought it was slow at times, but I did not like it.
Yeah, I was the same way. I would like to watch it again.
Right.
I don't think I watched it I didn't see it in the theater. So I watched it at home, and I don't think it was under the right circumstances because I don't remember a whole lot about it. So I would like to see it again. Maybe I could try to catch it even before I go to see Covenant.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, because I remember I wanted to see it in the theater when it came out, and I never got to. I remember as soon as it came out on Blu-ray, I think Julie and I watched it that weekend, and I think I saw it maybe once on cable since, and I don't even know if I saw it the whole thing. I think I saw it kind of like midway through on cable. So yeah, no, I definitely want to watch it again because I just remember being, saying, okay, it's a little long, a little confusing at parts, but I did enjoy it. I remember that, and I didn't get all the backlash for it that everyone had so many problems with it, but.
Well, that's kind of a good segue into this movie because the movie we're doing this week, The Witch, which is also pretty divisive. I believe most horror fans have a lot of respect for it. It definitely got critically acclaimed. But as far as like your mainstream moviegoer, and I told Brian this story, and this is where we're going to earn our explicit tag for this week. But
yeah,
I went to see this in the theater opening week. I had already heard the hype about it, so I was expecting it to be good. The critical acclaim, I should say. And this is where the commercials were running on TV all the time with the peekaboo and the baby disappearing and all that kind of stuff. And then there was, of course, the splash that Stephen King said this movie terrified the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So I was really excited to go see this. Got in the theater. There's hardly anybody in there because nobody really went to see this, at least in my area. And there was a group of youngish kids. I would say college age kids sitting in front of us, and I could kind of tell they weren't the crowd for this movie. And
they need to go see Rings.
Yeah, sure enough, the credits roll at the end, and the girl in front of me goes, "That was the worst fucking movie I've ever seen." And I was like, and I just kind of was like rolling my eyes, like, "Oh my god, like, you just don't get it."
And then I bet after they went to Hershey Park and tried to get on Sky Rush and said to Mike, "Are you serious?"
Yeah. It was one of those girls, and I was like, "Oh, like, you just don't You just don't get it. This movie.
Yeah, it's not for them. This was, how we said Rings. I remember because I was actually re-listening to our podcast because I always do like to hear it. See how it came out.
He just enjoys my dulcet. He just enjoys my dulcet tones.
I do. I put that on if I'm having trouble sleeping. I'll put Tim's dulcet tones on. It's very nice and soothing, and it's. But and I had said a line. I said, that the Rings definitely had that. In a target audience of that PG-13 horror movie style. This was not that at all. That's, maybe the girls that went and saw that expected that kind of thing because that's really a lot of what they're throwing out there. Mm-hmm. But this was not that. This was like, in my opinion, A-level horror. This was up there with some of the great horror films that we've seen in the past few years. With like I said, it's so many of it's washed out with a lot of the PG-13 stuff that comes out, and they're just misses. This one I thought was a hit where it hit its target it wanted to, and I actually liked it even. I liked it the first time, and I loved it the second time.
Yeah, and I think I don't really blame that girl because, like you said, most horror that comes out is that mainstream popcorn fluff, and if that's what you're expecting. You probably will be bored by this movie. Although I will say, I don't think this is a slow-paced movie.
No, it's short. It's only an hour. It's just an hour and a half, and it really does. Yeah, it's not big on It doesn't have really a lot of jump scares and horror, and maybe classic horror jumps and scares, but the whole film has this unsettling nature to it. So I always feel, I always felt on edge the whole time from just the music and the imagery. And so, yeah, it definitely does not drag. That's, maybe this girl thought it was that way because she was expecting God knows what out of this thing. But, the way I thought it moved and, it was interesting and you wanted to see what happened next. There was no point where I'm like, ugh. What's going to happen?
I kind of described it as a slow burn that's not very slow.
Right.
I don't know how else to describe it because from typical mainstream horror movie standards, it is a quote-unquote slow burn, but I was never bored by it. And it never dragged. There was always something going on that propelled the story forward. So, but speaking of the story, let's talk a little bit about what this is about. So you have this Puritan family who are basically exiled from their community because I guess the father and I can't remember his exact words, but he's basically claiming that the community are not real Christians or whatever.
Right, yeah, he agreed. He had a different, interpretation of the Testament, right? The New Testament, or is it right?
Yeah, and this is, by the way, this is...
Or the Old Testament, I'm sorry. I get those backwards all the time.
Yeah, this is in 1600s New England. So, it's all Puritanism, hardcore religion. So they're basically exiled from the community and basically have to go start fresh on just a little plot of land, raising their own little farm. And you have the dad, who is played by the great Ralph Ineson. His name is William. And you have his wife, Kate, who's played by Kate Dickie, and her name is Catherine. And they have 4 children. They have Anya Taylor-Joy plays Thomason. Harvey Scrimshaw plays the older son, Caleb. And then you have the 2 twins, a boy and a girl. One is Elle Granger, who plays Messi.
Yeah, Messi.
Messi, as they say.
Yeah.
And Lucas Dawson, who plays Jonas. And then there's they have 5 kids because they have an infant.
Well, he comes in, right? He's not there, I guess, when they first get out, right?
Right.
He's born as they move, I think.
Exactly. So they end up having a baby as well, which figures quite sinisterly in the plot.
Oh, does it ever? Yeah, that was a rough scene.
So they're basically making that this is it. They've been exiled and they're out trying to make their way in the world. Now, it's important to note that this film probably looks and sounds like none other that you've ever seen because they very much tried to stick to historical accuracy. So a lot of the dialogue was taken directly from firsthand accounts from that time period, from witch trial accounts and things like that. So the dialogue is very, very, I don't know if Old English is the correct word, but it's a lot of these and thous. It's at times very hard to understand.
Yeah, and actually this time I remember, because that was maybe the when I first watched it, I think there was a couple times I actually rewound because I couldn't tell what they said. And it's fun. And so this time I actually watched it with subtitles, and it's funny, even with the subtitles on the whole time, there were sequences where it just put a question mark. Because even the subtitles couldn't pick up a word that they used, or it was a word that just is so far removed from anything we know in the English language that it was not even interpreted.
Right, and it was a different cadence of language back then. So
right.
It was a different way the sentences were structured, and it really takes some getting used to. I remember when I saw this in the theater, it took me several minutes to even get my brain accustomed to understanding this pattern of speech. And
you had no rewind option or scan back option or subtitle option. So yeah, you kind of went in there like without any kind of safety net.
Yeah, and the movie's very sparse. Like I said, it takes place on this one little homestead and never ventures away from that, aside from the opening scene where we see them basically being booted out of the community. And they are on this plot of land which borders a very thick, sinister section of woods, which also features heavily in the plot.
And it's creepy because it's like you could see where literally they're like, it's almost as if like, when you go camping or something and there's this there's woods, but there's clearings where you could set your tent up. That's kind of like where their house was this big clearing, but then all around them were these big, giant woods.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And this is one of those movies where the score basically makes this entire movie.
Oh my god! Yeah, it was. It really was a perfect score. If there's if you want to rank it terms up there, I mean I don't know many that are better in terms of the way that it captured the feel and the tension. But it's funny, there were points where there was no music at all, which was creepy enough. So then when it did come back, it was so jarring, but it didn't seem out of place jarring. It seemed perfectly placed jarring, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so let's get into that in a second, because I want to talk about the cast first, because they are phenomenal, every single one of them. So again, Anya Taylor-Joy plays Thomason, and this was her big breakout role, really. There's many sequences in this movie where she has to act with just her face. Yeah. She's not talking. She's basically very close to the camera, extreme close-ups, and she has this really, I don't want to say creepy, because she's not creepy.
No, not at all. Yeah.
She has this really wide-eyed innocence about her, but also a maturity that goes along with it. And it makes for this. I was just captivated every time she was on screen.
Yeah, and it's funny. She her Instagram page. She has a lot of pictures where she's got those expressions, those almost. I don't want to say blank expressions because it looks blank at first look, but then there's a lot there, if that makes sense. And she had a couple of those moments in Split too, and I referred to that. I had said, she's so expressive sometimes without saying much, and in this film, it's such a requirement that she needed, and she nailed it perfectly.
Mm-hmm. She also plays. She's the oldest daughter, and so she's kind of a caretaker to Jonas and Mercy. Mercy.
Sorry.
Which I love saying. I'm sorry.
You gotta say. Well, if you notice, that's why I said Mebir. It's
But as such, she has to play. I mean, she is the star of this movie. The entire plot centers around her, so she basically has to carry the entire movie. For somebody who is so new to movie making, which was really impressive.
She's the box art essentially on most of the box art. So
yeah, but she has to simultaneously be this mature young woman who is, kind of almost a mother figure to the young twins. But at the same time, she's kind of caught in that girly stage where, she's still under the thumb of her parents.
And she's still playful with her siblings.
Still playful. And so it's really a balancing act she has to do in this film between this really weird maturity and then this, daughter who doesn't know how to handle the events that are happening around her. You have to see it to really understand how good she is in this role.
Yeah, and it's tough too, because she's got the same challenges with all that's going on as a typical older sibling would have, where the younger siblings, like, yeah, you're older, they respect you a little bit, but they're not going to listen to you because you're not their parents. But yet the parents rely on her to kind of still keep the kids under control, and the two little twins are not easy to deal with, apparently.
And so Ralph Ineson plays William, and I'll go ahead and talk about Kate Dickie as well, because they were both in Game of Thrones, the Game of Thrones TV series. I don't believe together, but they were in the series.
Yeah, actually, I think I saw they were never in one scene together at all.
Right, but I always thought this when I looked at Peter Cushing, is like, there's some people that just have a face for movies that they don't have to say a word. Their face on the screen just portrays a huge amount of information without them even speaking a line of dialogue, and both of these actors fit that bill. Ralph Ineson, he just has the look of this hard scrabble farmer who's just, life's just beat him down, and his wife is the same way. I mean, she just looks like this. God, I mean, both of these people, I would totally believe if you told me, yeah, these are 16th century farmers. Yeah. I mean, 17th century farmers.
Yeah, we traveled back in time to bring them into today to star in this movie.
I would be like, yep, that's probably what they look like.
I'll buy it. And the funny thing is, you said that, he doesn't need to speak to come across, but his voice is so commanding in this too when he does speak. So it even made the performance of his so much more powerful. Yeah,
and at this time period, obviously the man of the house is the man of the house. Like, his rule is gospel, and he has that tall, big, commanding presence to portray that in the movie. And then we have Caleb, who's the older boy. I believe he's younger than Thomason, but he does a great job as well. And I don't believe he's been in very much at all either. I think his IMDb, he's only got like 2 other films.
Yeah, and he's one of those ones where he's got that, like, the old-looking boy face, kind of like the kid in Children of the Corn, like the main villain. What was his? Isaac.
Right.
Remember in the first Children of the Corn, like that look about him at some level. Like, he's young, but he's got this older face at the same time. It's really
right. And they needed somebody like that because of the dialogue demands of this film. I mean, he has some of the most complex dialogue in the movie.
Yeah, especially when he's suffering in that one scene, and he's screaming. He must have it's almost this whole monologue he does where it's hard to understand what he's saying. I mean, at some point, but you can tell he's delivering this ton. I mean, with having the subtitles on, I could tell what he was saying a little better, and it's some serious stuff there he's got going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that role had to go to a young actor that had some maturity to him that could handle that kind of dialogue and accent at the same time, because he's got a very strong accent.
And since that other guy, what was the one in Burial Ground, whatever? What was it? Peter Bark? He wasn't around.
Peter Bark wasn't available.
Yeah, he's not available anymore. So.
And then the 2 creepiest twins since The Shining was Mercy and Jonas. And I remember when I saw it in a theater, like, I was terrified when these two came on screen because they creeped me out so much.
She was very blocky, wasn't she? She had this walk about her that had no shape to her. It was
they
weird.
Looked like, the only best thing I can describe it is they looked like little people, but they're not. They did,
yes, yeah.
They're not. It's just the way their wardrobe, like, they wore these tight bonnets and stuff, so you really couldn't see their hair. And it was just something about the way they look, and I guess their maturity too, but they looked like, it kind of reminded me of the Munchkins on Wizard. I'm not trying to compare little people and Munchkins, so don't get offended. But that look of the little creepy Munchkins in Wizard of Oz, they kind of had that thing with them. It was really eerie, and they're not twins in real life.
Yeah, no, you could tell they weren't. They definitely were not. Yeah, you could tell they were. I mean, they had a resemblance of some sort, but not. You could tell they were not related as twins for sure. So
yeah, but they just have something. And obviously, through the course of the movie, you start seeing how evil these little bastards are, because they're they're a big part of what starts turning the family against Thomason.
Yeah.
And basically have no guilt or can't even fathom the repercussions of their actions.
They're even torturing the goat.
Yeah, I mean, they're just they're evil little kids. But I was watching it on the second viewing. I was watching it because the first time I just remembered them being so creepy. So on the second viewing, I was like, I'm going to figure out exactly what's so creepy about these two. And I can't nail it down because they don't look particularly scary, or like the Shining twins or whatever. They're not made up to look scary or anything. They're just normal kids, but something in their portrayal just has this really odd vibe to it.
Yeah, it's nothing. They don't do any like camera tricks on them or anything. They're just, it must be the way the outfit is on them or something, and because they move like normal kids. I don't know. They don't have a weird walk, or they don't just stand there and stare or anything weird. It's something just unnerving about them.
Well, I think part of it could also be the dialogue, because you're not used to seeing kids talk like this, because they do some of the same complex dialogue, and I think it's something kind of, you get these alarm bells in your mind when a kid's talking like that, because it just it's so out of place. I mean, it's already out of place with the adults.
Right.
But then you place that on a kid, and with the accent and everything, and they do such a great, I mean, it's just a testament to how good they do, but there's something like just really weird about it. I don't know. You have to see them. They're messy.
Yeah, messy. Especially, you gotta say, just for that alone, just to hear them say messy. Yeah.
So anyway, a little more about the story. So Thomason is playing peekaboo, which you've probably seen this from the trailer. Thomason's playing peekaboo, and we're not going to go through every scene by scene, because this was one of those movies you need to just watch on your own.
Yeah, and it would really, that doesn't do it justice to go through that. If you're even describing the scene, we cannot describe it as good as the visuals play out. So
right, but she's playing peekaboo with the infant, and at some point she says peekaboo and opens her eyes, and the infant's gone. And all she sees is basically a ruffle of some branches in the woods. So the family believes that the infant was taken by a wolf. The viewer understands that she was probably taken by a witch. And this is a good time to go back to that score, because when I remember sitting in the theater listening to the music, and you have to imagine, when I say music, I'm talking more like just screeching violins, a weird choir in the background, and it just builds and builds to like just this cacophony of sound. And in the theater, it was just cranked up, so you could almost feel that music in your bones.
Yeah, and you can imagine someone who maybe really takes care of their instruments cringing because it sounds like they were ripping this violin.
Yeah, and so you've probably all seen documentaries or whatever where they take a piece of film footage and they put happy, funny music to it, and then they do the same footage and just put sad music, and it totally changes the tone of what you're looking at. And there are shots in this movie where it's just a shot of the woods. There's nothing scary. There's nothing there. There's no hidden figures or anything on screen. It's just a simple shot of the woods, and this music is just pounding, and it is some of the most terrifying things I've seen in my life. Just sitting in that theater, just dreading what was in those freaking woods, all because of that music.
Yeah, you almost and you're so used to the way modern horror films kind of almost like tip their hand and show you like something. I'm glad they didn't in this. They literally gave you the music, the visual, and let your mind go from there.
Yep, exactly. They left it up to you and so you're constantly on edge, thinking something's got to be about to happen because the music's going crazy. It's just this constant underlying tension. And one thing I mentioned, I might have mentioned it in last episode when we were talking about, you usually have these moments in horror movies where there's a lighter bit of humor to break the tone or something to let the audience off the hook. There is none of that in this movie. And watching it the second time through, I was trying to find any moments of humor or levity to prove me wrong, and I really couldn't find them. You could maybe do a stretch and say, the scene where the twins are coming after Thomason, and she kind of tells them that she's the witch of the woods,
and scares him, yeah.
and tries to scare him. I guess you might could stretch and say that's a lighthearted moment, but even then, it's not really, because it moves the plot forward in such a way that's not in a good direction. So I couldn't find an example in this movie where they let you off the hook. There's this constant underlying tension. Yeah,
there was the deleted scene though where the I don't know if you saw this, but where the twins are back in the little like cabin, and when Thomason walks in and the little boy just goes, "We represent the lollipop guild." No, I'm sorry.
No,
I couldn't resist.
That is not on there.
That is not there. I'm sorry. I couldn't. I couldn't resist.
You're terrible, Brian.
I am.
He gets fired from the episode at least once every week.
Yeah. I can't help it. I never. I need to do something to keep up with Tim's dulcet tones. But yeah, no. Tim is right. There really is no. You know how we were talking about that in the original Ring, how there was nothing there. This goes further than that. There's nothing where you feel even a sense of relief at some level. You're always on edge through this.
Just to give a little more about the story is, slowly things start to happen, after the infant is taken. Things start to happen that are, it's a common formula in horror movies for things to start slowly escalating. And they do in this film as well. But to add to that, you start getting this paranoia creeping in among the members of the family of who's behind all this, whose fault is all this. You have to remember, this is back in the days when, your sin could be why God is punishing us for this and that.
Right, so and they really believed it.
Yeah, they totally believe it. So you have some of that creeping in. You have, this conflict between Thomason and the twins. The twins are basically accusing her of being a witch. And she's like, whoa, wait a minute, this is serious stuff. And then you start getting these escalating events, and the parents are going, well, maybe she is a witch, And,
yeah, because they just have one bad thing after another. I mean, their corn gets ruined. Their, I think, the dog gets murdered. It's like stuff is one thing after another, and then I guess their all their crops get ruined at one point, and they're to the point of where now they're in danger of starving. Oh, and then I guess the father goes to shoot the animal. He's got lined up dead to rights, and the thing fires off in his face. And injures him, and something spills on him. It's like, it's nothing but bad luck after bad luck, and it's one of those situations where everyone's thinking that okay, it's somebody, but then someone's got to throw that idea into your head, like, and and it's basically, it's funny. It's by the most inconspicuous ones you would think of. It's the little kids throw that out there that our sister's a witch, and the next thing you know. Even that, I think the father was the longest holdout to it. I think the mother kind of bought into it right away, it seemed like, because she was so distraught over the fact that she probably blamed her at some, for losing what was the baby? Samuel was the baby? Sam?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, the baby. And so she was already had this blame at her, and the father was, I think of the father, he loves his kids, and it's his oldest firstborn child, and he doesn't want to believe it, but he, just the kind of mentality that they had back then is, he knew it was there, kind of as an underlining theme the whole time, but he didn't want to believe it at first, but he kind of just one after another, he starts, that thoughts in his head, and it just develops.
Yeah. So what's interesting is, as all these events are unfolding, in true psychological horror style, the viewer has some doubt as to what's real and what's not, and the director even left behind some clues. He said, for example, their corn goes bad and gets moldy. Well, the type of mold that was on this corn was known to be hallucinogenic. So, are we watching real supernatural events play out? Are we watching just a bunch of people going mad from eating bad corn? I don't know. Now, the movie pretty much plays it straight, and that's the way I took it. But I think it is nice that he leaves enough room for doubt that there's always this little gray area of whether this is some truly remarkable paranormal event that took place, or if we're misinterpreting a series of natural events and ascribing some supernatural presence to something, almost like they did back then, where they would subscribe, a crop failure to gods being displeased or whatever.
Right, and the mindset of that was so strong then, it's easy to believe that they could think, oh, it's your fault because you did this, and
Mm-hmm.
So
watching it from that angle is kind of interesting too. When I rewatched it, I kind of tried to take the opposite stance, and not look at it as a straight supernatural horror movie, but also kind of take the stance like, what if this really happened and there is nothing truly supernatural going on? How do you look at this movie? It's really interesting to watch it both ways, in both mindsets, and see how it works.
Like, how would you explain then the child disappearing? Like, what would you think they would say for that?
I don't know, because as a film, you have to kind of take the sequence of events with a grain of salt, because the director's showing the sequences in the way that he wants you to see them. So let's say if this happened in real life, in the film, the baby is snatched away within seconds, and the woods are so far away, there's no way even a wolf could grab the child and disappear into the woods as fast as it did.
Right, yeah, and so it could be like her view of how it happened.
Right, but then you think about it, what if the movie's just representing her view? Hey, I just looked down and he was gone. You hear that all the time. I looked away for just a second and I turned back around and he was gone. Well, maybe your second was really more like 3 minutes.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, see, that was the one I was struggling with, because I all the other ones I can kind of see. Granted, okay, the kid gets, Caleb gets sick with an illness. That could have easily been he might have caught something in the woods. He's out in the woods all the time. They had no medical people around. They were on their own. There was no doctor they could have referred to. He could have got some kind of tick on him, and got some early disease that wasn't... So, yeah, all of it's explained. That was the one I was always having trouble with, but actually it made a lot of sense. It was probably just her view of it. You could look at it that way.
Now, I will say the director did say in interviews that he filmed it as a fairy tale, or a basically, from the director's point of view, this is a literal, you could interpret it as a literal supernatural sequence of events. So, and that's the way the movie plays on first thought. But it is kind of fun to look at that other view, and he did leave enough on purpose to make that other view at least somewhat plausible. It doesn't work as well as the straight literal interpretation. But at least it's there, and it's fun to speculate. And that's pretty much it. I don't want to give too much about this movie away, because it really is, like we said, is one you should experience for yourself. But I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Black Phillip. Yes,
Black Phillip. He will come into play a little bit later too.
Yeah, but Black Phillip is the family goat. And,
yeah.
And what's funny is they call him Black Phillip from the get-go. And of course, a goat being a symbol of Satan, he becomes quite ominous through the course of the film. But Black Phillip is quite the character, and I've never seen as scary a goat on film. Yeah,
no, right off the bat, he's just he's creepy, and
he's mean.
And the kids are like taunting him too. So he's getting antagonized on top of it.
Yeah, I had to bring him up because he featured pretty prominently in the marketing as well. I think he's on the cover, right?
On some artwork. Artwork is just the back of Anya Taylor-Joy from that iconic sequence at the end. But there's some artwork where it's the Black Phillip artwork. Where it's kind of the horns of the goat.
I like to bring him up because it's an example of how good this movie is at making ordinary things seem extremely terrifying. They make ordinary kid twins terrifying. It makes a shot of the woods terrifying, and it makes a stupid black goat extremely terrifying.
Yeah, and I think the kids are always saying how he's talking to them and he's telling them stuff.
Yeah,
so it's like you're like
so creepy.
Yeah, so you're like, okay, and these are creepy kids at some level, and they're talking to this goat, and the goat's telling them things, and so you're like, okay, and that's still that whole point where you're trying to see, the blurred line of if they're all just imagining stuff, or as if it's actually happening and there's a supernatural element to it. Like, what's the deal? And then again, it's kids, So kids give voices to things that don't have voices, you know? It's like,
and they're the mischievous type that would probably do something like that.
Right. These kids are the ones that would like sit there and with a ham sandwich and say that it's telling them a story, you know? It's like, so it makes all the sense in the world. And at some level, it makes it work so well because you're like, are these kids just brats or what the hell's going on? Is this goat actually like evil, you know?
I don't know much more to say about the film that we haven't already covered without giving away too many plot points. But suffice it to say, it was easily one of my favorite horror movies of 2015. Probably one of my favorite horror movies of the past several years.
Yeah, mine too now. And like I said, I liked it the first time, and I loved it the second time. Because I think after, you know, as we mentioned, you know, with the dialogue, and it's hard to get used to. So it's one where... you know, like a second viewing is really helpful. Not that it needs it, because you can still enjoy it the first time, of course, but I think you really get more of it because you get past that you know, the learning curve, so to speak, of what's going on, and you could just sit there and enjoy it, and you really see the great visuals and sound.
Yeah, and I think this one will go down in the rankings years from now as an example of, you know, A-list horror. And I'm not trying to put it in the same pantheon as The Exorcist and Jaws and stuff like that, but it has that same like serious, mature tone of a horror movie that was written for adults and tries to make a statement and is trying to tell something beyond your typical mainstream PG-13 slasher or whatever.
Right, and I'm glad a movie like this could actually get a mainstream release and be made in today's type of environment where, you know, most horror movies do not, you know, you don't get that depth out of them. You know, you get that's why what Get Out was so great, you know, and some of the other ones we've mentioned, but like, you know, most of the time, I hate to say it, but you're getting Rings, you know, or that style, and it's a shame because, you know those cash grab horror films are just, you know, why bother sometimes,
right? And Get Out was pretty brilliant, and it made a bigger splash than this movie, obviously, because whereas this movie was, I hate to use the word artsy because it seems derogatory.
Yeah, and it's not by any means. It's
not by any means. But Get Out, I think, more successfully crossed over into that mainstream and put in just enough to pull in that mainstream crowd. Even though it was a serious horror movie, it was able to more effectively straddle that line between, you know, kind of a artsy, serious horror movie and your kind of popcorn Friday night date night horror movie.
Right. Yeah. It definitely had. Yeah. It basically had the you know, it went for that same audience, but delivered a good movie at the same time. It had the perfect mix of grabbing that audience, that popcorn audience on a Friday night, you know, teenagers going in there, let's go see a horror movie kind of thing. But it had something, it still had enough substance in it for the true horror fans to absolutely love it. So yeah, but you know, The Witch obviously was you know, you're not comparing the two, and other than the exact genre, you know, being horror movies. But yeah, I'm kind of glad. And you know, it's like, you know, just one other thing I'll touch on too with the, you know, how we said some of the stylistic choices they made. You know, I was reading this, and you notice it too, and it's one of the things that's kind of that underlying qualities that kind of unnerve you a bit, is that how they tried to use natural light as much as they could there. So there's just scenes where they're dark, but it's intentional. You know, it's lit enough that you can see what you need to see, but it's also dark enough to give you that feel of, okay, you know, you feels like you're kind of in there, you know, you're involved in it.
And also adds to the authenticity, because obviously at some level your mind knows there were no floodlights in 1630s New England.
Right.
But so when you see, you know, this natural light, it kind of puts you in the same atmosphere that they were seeing back then, and it feels very authentic in that way.
Oh, it does. I mean, and the lighting package on Black Phillip didn't come till another 100 years later, so.
Yeah, exactly. So we had Brian came up with an excellent beer pairing, which was as probably on the nose as you can get.
Yeah, we say that every week. We keep saying that each week, but this one, I literally think when I read when I read about this, the promotion for this one actually references the film to some degree. So I'm going to read this to you, the description of it. And I know you're going to, I know because I'm a bit of a beer snob too. You're going to, don't hammer me. It's not an actual beer. It's a cider, but it's too good not to do it. It's actually called, it's from Blake Cider's company. It's called Black Phillip. And it's a cranberry and blood orange cider. And I think it came out last August. You can get it online. I saw a website that had it, so I'll make sure we post that information on the rundown if you want to order it. And here's the description that they gave. It says, our award-winning semi-sweet hard cider infused with an array of cranberries and blood orange. Permeate your favorite autumn nights with our newest creation, Black Phillip. The question is, would you like to live deliciously? So that was my terrible Black Phillip impersonation, but yeah. So
my Black Phillip impersonation is bleh.
Yeah. Jim's got his other line. So yeah. So this one, and the artwork on the can, I showed it to Tim, and he wants to buy it just for the artwork.
Yeah, it's a shot of it's Black Phillip.
Yeah, it is. It's Black Phillip. So obviously they're strong enough fans for the witch out there, or the Vavavitch, as a stylistic font they chose, for the promotion. Said so. Yeah, so I yes, I understand it is not a true beer, but listen, how do you pass that up, right? I mean, can you
close enough?
Yeah. So.
All right. So last week's trivia question was about The Ring, and it was what unique Easter egg was on the Ring DVD, and Brian, I'll let you take that one because I think you have the description.
Yes. So basically, on the DVD, back then there were a lot of Easter eggs, so that they would put on different things at different DVDs. And so here's this one. I mean, it's kind of an obvious one at some level, but done in a cool way. So the cursed video that obviously everyone watches in the Ring is available as an Easter egg on this DVD. So what you need to do is you press down and your cursor disappears. Then you hit enter. So then what happens is your remote control is now disabled. And basically the video starts to play and there's no way you can stop it. You can't pause it. You can't fast forward it because it disables your remote, which is cool enough, right? So basically the only way they go is, as they say, you can turn off the TV, but at that point you're not going to probably think of that. So you basically are forced to watch the whole thing. Kind of like those, the FBI warnings. You can't fast forward it. But then when it's over, the DVD returns to its menu, and you will hear a phone ring twice, and then you're given control of the remote again. So that, especially if you have surround sound, I know our surround sound has fooled me many a times on movies where there's been like a subtle sound effect in the background, and I think it's like something in the back of the house or something outside, and so I can just imagine listening to this, if you don't expect it, probably get a really, really cool little effect of the phone ringing if they do it right and it sounds like it's off in the room. Of course, it's probably that classic phone ring that nobody has anymore, but yeah, so that would be I think that's a cool little Easter egg in there. I know there's so many of them. Back when DVDs used to come out, I think once they went to Blu-ray, they kind of knocked those off. They don't really do that much anymore.
Yeah, it's not as unique a gimmick anymore. I think it's kind of tired. But
yeah, but so back at the time though, it was really a popular thing to put those Easter eggs on. So that's the answer to that.
So the trivia question for this week is: we've already talked about the natural lighting that was used. There's another particularly unique thing about the way this film was shot. So our trivia question for this week is what was the unique thing about the way the witch was shot? And if you're a film nerd or you might know this one right off the top of your head just from watching the movie. But,
yeah, they'll be like, "Oh, that is easy."
Yeah. I've got a guy at work that he's a super hardcore movie buff, but not in the way you would think. He's more comes at it from a technical perspective. So even though he's seen a ton of films, when a movie comes out, he can tell you what cameras it was filmed with.
Oh wow!
Anything like that goes to the technical aspect of the way the film was produced, and he's the type that will even go drive an hour away to see a theater that's screening it in a particular aspect ratio or a particular format, different from another movie, different from how the normal release is going to be or whatever.
So he's like the Dan the T-shirt guy of film.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because I went and saw Rogue One with him, and while we were standing in line, because obviously we had to stand in line for quite a while for that one, and he was just telling me basically all these technical aspects of the movie and the way it was shot, and they used these particular cameras that had not been seen for 50 years, and they had to restore them, and they had to get parts from this other camera, and there's only 3 of them in the world, and all this it was insanely interesting.
Sounds like the plumbing in our house. I swear. For those who don't know, my wife and I, we live in we took over basically my grandmother's house, and they have these pipes in this house where I like when the plumber came to fix something, I think he like called other plumbers to see, as it was so exciting or something. And there was one thing he had some faucet where he had to literally like call all over our area to find. It was like one store had the last one on Long Island, supposedly, of this piece. So yeah, hopefully it doesn't break again.
Just watch out for Pipes the Poltergeist.
Yeah, that's right. I know. I think he's in our house already because we always got some kind of sound effect coming through that. It's not the cave crickets; it's the pipes. So.
Oh God, you had to bring up the cave crickets again.
Oh, I didn't even. Yeah, we've actually they've come up lately too. There was a couple of baby ones. I felt bad, but you can't let them go because they don't stay babies for long. These things, and they're all over the place. There was one. I think one was in the bathroom. One was actually made it all the way to the living room one time.
Oh.
But yeah, another time I'll have to tell you we'll have to have a one episode where if one of the ones where we don't do movies. We'll do maybe like some true like creepy moments or something. If one of those ones we need a short week. I mean, I know we told one of your good ones with Anna, where she's scared to you. Yeah. But I have a really really good one. I'm gonna save for that where that happened to me and it was legit. So it was it was when I was younger, so it was kind of cool. But I'll save that for a show where we do that, and maybe and to get some good participation here. If you guys have any stories like that you want to let us know, you can come and email us or something, or let us know because I know everyone's got one of these things where something either scared them.
Yeah, did you see a ghost or? Everybody's got a story like that. You saw a UFO, anything's kind of spooky that happened to you, send it to us and we'll read it on the air.
Yeah, and I got to get Julie on. She's got some cool ones.
Yeah, I've got a few cool ones. I actually stayed in a haunted hotel in West Virginia, so I'll have to tell you about that. And got some other kind of creepy stories about my grandmother, which are pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
So, that would be a good topic for a show, just to kind of break it up a little bit.
Yeah, because, I mean, I know we talk about, we like to talk about movies, and everyone likes to hear a movie but, it's also good to change the format, and there's going to be weeks where, just life gets in the way, and we don't have maybe the time to dedicate to a movie or...
That would actually be, that might actually be a good episode coming up here, Brian, because Brian and I have got a couple of trips coming up back-to-back weeks, where we're going to have to possibly record a couple episodes in a row, so maybe that'd be a good one to do. So we don't have to take the time to watch a movie. We could just do a personal stories episode.
Oh, true. Yeah, I mean, maybe a little shorter than normal episodes, but I mean, we'll still have the usual of the dismemberments and the first chops and stuff like that. And actually, it's funny when we get back from these trips, we're gonna have a lot to catch up on because there'll be at that point, Twin Peaks will be a few episodes in a full swing, and Friday the 13th, the video game will be out by then.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that Night Trap, the release should be out at some point within that time period. So there'll be a lot, and Tim and I will be at some theme parks, and we were looking at there's a haunt out in Myrtle Beach we may check out. So we may have a lot of stuff when we get back. So you may get a shorter show maybe in the next within a few weeks from now, but it'll definitely make up in the end as we come back with some stronger content. Yeah,
we're not going anywhere. We got tons of plans throughout the summer, and especially when we hit haunt season, we'll be going full blast. So,
yeah.
Lots of fun in store.
Yeah, and I know we promised some people. Like I know we'll bring definitely going to bring my brother Seth on when we do the Evil Dead, because I know he's got a lot of stuff and he's got his mixed drink he's been saving, and I know we're definitely going to do a kind of steal a little bit from Kevin's podcast he goes on with the Star Wars version, where we may get some horror virgins on here that really are not, or, maybe not horror virgins, true to say, because I'm sure everyone has seen a horror movie by now, but they may not be particular fans of horror movies, and it may be kind of fun to kind of make them watch something and then kind of get their thoughts on it, because obviously Tim and I love the genre, and so we nitpick and look through things and really seek this out. But it might be fun to kind of someone who doesn't like that, kind of force them to watch it, something really good,
Yeah, so lots of cool plans for some neat format episodes, and I know I've already had at least one request to do basically a Mystery Science Theater 3000 style audio commentary for a film.
Oh, yes.
As we watch it. So that may be something we look at later on down the road as well.
Yeah, and if you guys, there's another way to be interactive, because, I mean, seriously, even if it's a tweet or email, even if it's just like something simple to say, hey, yeah, I'd love to hear you guys do a commentary on, The Exorcist or whatever, or, I mean, I wouldn't even mind, like, revisiting one of the movies we did already, the Blood Diner or the Manitou or something like that. And actually, I gotta say, we haven't mentioned the Manitou in a while. So it's a good thing I just said it. I know. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's like I had to kind of, it's like we...
Well, that book comes out.
Oh, right. So
the sequel to the Manitou, the book, comes out in August, so I'll definitely be reading that.
That's true. And I've been a little bit lagging. I have a bunch of DVDs and Blu-rays, stuff that I have to take pictures of and kind of put them up on the Instagram, including I just got today my Spider Baby little mini poster that I ordered. I couldn't resist it. Sorry, that movie just hit well with me. So I saw it was like $10 or something on Amazon, so I jumped on it, and so it came today. It's cool. It's like, it's the typical, the standard artwork where, it says a long, whatever that one with Virginia on it. Mm-hmm. It says a spider and a fly, whatever that little like dialogue is, that little quote. So yeah, so that's on there. So I'm gonna definitely get that framed, and I actually got to go get some frames anyway for the stuff that I got at Chiller. So and you know what? Maybe we'll have to do maybe I'll do as a bonus when I give Tim his surprise that I picked up for him at Chiller. We'll like record that so he can get like a Tim unboxing surprise.
Oh yeah, cool. That'd be cool.
So because Tim doesn't know what we got him yet. So
nope, I have no idea.
So.
All right, so yeah, guys, look us up on Facebook, Twitter at Civil Gore Pod, Gmail, civilgorepodcast@gmail.com. Drop us a line. Your homework this week is any personal anecdotes you have, supernatural, ghost stories, anything creepy that's ever happened to you, even if it's a funny story, sort of like the one with my daughter. And the other one was if you have a movie some crazy movie that you want us to guess what it's about before we watch it, and then watch it. Let us know. That would be a fun little game.
Oh yeah, I think that could be really fun, and that could be something we do once a month or something. That could be the movie we pick for the month, or and something.
Particularly if it just has a title that has nothing to do with the actual movie, would be the best case scenario.
Yeah, because now I gotta really seek out that Mummy. Well, even though I'm calling it the Mummy movie, and it was like the something The Exorcist or something. What was it?
Voodoo Black Exorcist.
Voodoo Black Exorcist.
Not to be confused with Voodoo Black Phillip.
Right, which is that's coming later. So that's going to be the crossover that they do.
That's our ninth Kickstarter.
Yeah, there we go. The crossover between Black Phillip and Black Voodoo Exorcist. So.
All right, guys. So we'll see you back here next week.
Take it easy.